Lauren Karwoski, Mitchell Reporting News Podcast. Welcome.
How are you? I'm happy to be here.
Oh, listen, it's another Monday morning. We're just here, you know. Where I'm at right now is still negative, 15, negative 20 outside, Canada, Toronto area.
Oh gosh. Okay, I do have to say I am in Florida at the moment, and I happen to be here for the first time in 16 years. They had snow this weekend, so I got to see snow in Tampa, Florida. So I'm freezing my butt
Wait,
off.
what? Was it a lot of snow? Was it a little fairy dust? What was it?
I mean, it was flurries, but for the Floridians, that was it. Could have been a blizzard, you know. that was their version of a blizzard.
No, I love that. I love that. And you Americans, you know, my American friends, and they can experience snow. We get our snow can be a little aggressive right now, you know, because we always got to be constantly digging and digging and digging. But then the whole country shuts down over there, which I'm like, wait, really? Shouldn't be doing that, you know?
Yeah, that's true. A little bit of snow and everyone's in panic mode. Roads closed, schools closed, everything.
Exactly. Switching directions real quick, because I know that you have quite a journey, a story, all that great stuff. And while we're here, you've made that transition from working full time to now being this digital content creator, digital nomad, things like that. How did that start for you? Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I was working in broadcast television, actually. That was my dream. So I went to college, I went to grad school, all with kind of the goal of being a broadcast reporter. Once I got into the industry, it really, really wasn't for me. And I had kind of these on-camera skills that I had learned and these digital media skills. And I was kind of like, well, what could I do with this now that I wanted to pivot? So I got into copywriting super temporarily. And that was a fully remote job. It was, you know, in a post-COVID world where we could work remotely. And I started to travel while doing that copywriting job because that's always been a big passion of mine. And truly, I know people always say it kind of just happens, but it was so organic in the way of I was sharing my journey online as a creative outlet, kind of documenting, hey, I work full time, but I also travel. You know, you could travel while working remotely, and it truly caught fire. People resonated so deeply with it, and I'm so lucky that over the course of the past 3 years, I was able to transition, basically leaving my full-time employment as a copywriter to now just doing the digital content creating full-time.
Love that. Speak to that, because I feel like now it's a common thing. A lot of folks want to leave the full time to pursue entrepreneurship, their own business, content creating.
Yes.
They don't have the fundamentals of how to get there. You have the fundamentals, and that's why we're here today. So speak to that. How did you fundamentally, top 3 tips, get to where you got to?
Yeah, my number one tip, and people like don't believe me because they're like, you're doing it full time. I say, wait. The longer that you could wait to make the jump to doing it full time, the better. It is such an unpredictable, unstable market. I will have months where I make so much money from a brand deal, and then I could go 3 months with nothing. So it's so up and down. So I say, if you do have some type of employment that allows you to still pursue it on the side, like hold on to that as long as you can. It is so nice to have that stability and that backup. So I kind of say, like, don't take the jump until you feel so ready to do it, especially from a financial standpoint. I also think with oversaturation, everyone is pursuing content. You kind of, to build a brand now, you almost need to be a content creator. Those are kind of becoming the same thing at this moment. You need to really, really identify your niche and what makes you different and what value you could provide to your audience. You know, there's a lot of noise online. There's a lot of oversaturation in the content creator space, and what makes you different and what are you providing to your audience that's of value to them. And I guess my third tip would be that consistency. Like, the numbers could be so frustrating, and sometimes you could feel like you are screaming into the void. I mean, I will have a day where I post a video even with a larger following and I get 1,000 views, and it's so discouraging, and it could really make you think, okay, maybe I want to take a break. You got to keep that consistency going and push through those lulls.
No, and it's so true. The algorithm is its own beast. You know what I mean? I feel
Yes.
like sometimes we look at the big number following that we have. I'm not really too much about that because I'm always about community first, and everything will flow. But it's
Yep.
like, are we being suppressed because there's so much people achieving the content? They want to push. They're trying to do this, trying to do that. So not everyone in a space of, let's say, 8 billion people, there's however many content creators in the world, we're all trying to chase after the same thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it gets a
Exactly.
little rough and it gets daunting and things like that. But I think what comes from me is how you speak about the money aspect. What is it financially going to look like? If you can say, when you made that switch, was it you had a certain amount of savings that you had, Or was it just like, you know what, I'm taking 2 feet and I'm jumping in the deep end with no water wings?
I was so scared. Like, this wasn't a like, yes, I'm ready to do it. This was like me going back and forth, being indecisive for weeks, you know, because I had a really comfortable full-time job, benefits, salary. So I was really nervous to let that go, and, you know, worried about if it doesn't work out, can I get back into my industry, my field? I would say it got to the point where the, you know, brand partnerships that I was doing, the money from the creator fund online and just, you know, from the revenue that I was making from my videos was pretty comparable to my salary. So that was kind of the first indicator I had of like, okay, I could sustain myself in the same way, but I definitely had savings. Because again, you never know. We've even seen, you know, scares with TikTok shutting down and things like that. There's so much uncertainty. So I always wanted to have savings. And then this is where I'll be so candid and frank. I had like 2 months. I left my job in August of, I believe it was 2024, to do full-time content. And by December, my savings was low to the point where I was probably for the first time in my life in a financial situation where I was nervous. I was very, very nervous. So I'll say that you like having that extra savings and a little bit to give you that like life vest and cushion is so important, because I definitely had months where all of a sudden, you know, the brand checks weren't coming in and things were kind of at a lull. And it's a scary moment when you have to kind of be like, okay, like it's make or break. Like, you know, it definitely is motivating, but any cushion that you could give yourself is going to be really, really helpful.
No, for sure. So speak to now being established. Do you feel like a lot of creators, say if they're starting to do 100K brand deals allotted, they should get some sort of personal accountant or someone to help not just say micromanage their money, but to manage their money and things like that to know where it's allotting and going?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think one of the biggest like things too is brand deal and content creator money comes in these large lump sums, far and few in between. You know, it's so different than getting that bi-weekly check that you're getting at work that's guaranteed and you know the amount it's going to be in. And a lot of these brand partnerships are net 30, 60, 90 days. So you're doing these deals and you are not seeing that money for 3 months. And having to budget was kind of a new thing for me because I was so used to that 9 to 5, like my check's coming in on Friday and I'm paying rent and I'm good. You know what I mean? So that all of a sudden where you're like, wow, I made so much money this month and I'm not seeing it till 3 months from now. Like how do I get my groceries for the next 3 months? You know what I mean? So it's really, really budgeting is so important. And I think if you could have someone who's, you know, an accountant who's experienced with working with creators. In my case, I actually have my grandpa helps me out with that, which is, I'm super lucky about that. It's definitely just having a third party person who could help you is really, really important.
I love that you say that. Speak to any adversity you had to come outside of the money aspect going into like first traveling to your first 5 countries and things like that. Was there anything that you had to overcome? Was it maybe a culture shock in different places, basically being American and going to all these different countries? What was it exactly?
I think for me, I have to skate this fine line of I am promoting visiting these countries and these places that I visit as a travel content creator, but over tourism is a really big problem. And there are certain countries that are like, we don't want more tourists. We don't want, you know, all of these Americans coming here. So I think one of the biggest kind of challenges for me was finding a way to talk about the places that I visited and share my experiences traveling while being respectful and sensitive to the over tourism community, you know, so whether that's me speaking with a restaurant in advance and being like, are you okay with me posting this online? Because if you're not and you don't want, you know, the crowds and you can't handle it, like totally fine. I think that was the biggest shock was you almost feel like you're doing something good and you have this complex of like, I'm doing such a great thing and I'm promoting these businesses in these places abroad. And then you kind of come to find out they don't want it and they don't, you know, they're kind of sick of the over tourism culture. So that was definitely challenging for me to find, you know, a way to do it in a respectful way that is being beneficial to other people.
Out of the, what is it now? I see 52 countries and counting.
Yes.
Right? It's increasing. I know it's increasing.
Yes.
Give me your favorite destination and why for the audience here.
I think my favorite destination still to this day was Egypt. I am a big history buff. I love, you know, learning about different cultures. And I think I went into it with a little bit of a negative mindset because I had heard a lot of people online, especially for solo female travelers like me, saying, you know, it's not safe. You shouldn't go by yourself. And I definitely had that in the back of my head when I went there, and was treated so kindly. Everyone I met was so incredibly respectful and kind. I had the best experience, and I think it was one of those like countries I visited too where I left and I'm like, you really can't listen to, you know, the stereotypes and the noise online. You need to form your own opinion. You need to have your own judgment, and you can't kind of lump yourself in with these opinions of the masses when you're traveling. It's important to just kind of stick to your own thoughts.
Now there's a little bit to you more, you know, as we peel back all the layers. You know, you had some on-air TV time, big national network, stuff like that. How does that now play hand in hand? Because you're getting that visible representation, not only off of Instagram and TikTok, being now on TV, NBC. Let's speak about that a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that was incredible. I mean, when you get a phone call that Jimmy Fallon has, you know, seen your TikTok and your content and they're interested in you, I mean, it's such a surreal experience. Even still, I watch it back on TV and I'm like, I can't believe that's me and I got to do that. From like a visibility standpoint, I think one of the most exciting things for me is kind of it brought the nomad culture to a larger platform. I'm really, really passionate about empowering, especially women to solo travel, people to kind of take advantage of this remote flexibility that we have in a post-COVID world. And after the show aired, I got so many messages and DMs from people being like, I just never knew that this realm existed of these nomads, these digital nomads. And people were really inspired by kind of the solo female travel aspect. And I got a lot of messages of people being like, oh, I've always wanted to do that. You know, you inspired me to take a solo trip. So that visibility was just like so incredible to me. Cause I'm like, I really felt like for the first time, it was kind of putting a spotlight more on what I've always been, you know, pushing for people.
Love that. I love that. Was there any important feedback that Jimmy Fallon gave you? And how did you take that to heart to really apply it now and amplify it into your play setting?
Yeah, it's funny you ask this because I think about this every day. One of the things that I said when I was sadly eliminated from the show, Jimmy told me to remember that there is beauty in mess. That was his biggest advice for me when it came to my content and everything. And I seriously, I'm like, I need a tattoo of that at this point because I think about it every single day. I definitely have a tendency, and I think a lot of other content creators, you know, struggle with this perfectionism of like, if I'm going on camera, I need full hair and makeup and I'm going to record it 9 times till it's absolutely perfect and it's so rehearsed and polished. And that is not what people want to see. People, you know, they're sick of this perfectionism culture. We don't want to see things that look like ads. Like, we want real, authentic, genuine people. And him, you know, telling me that, because it's something I struggle with. Like, I really took it to heart and understood what he was saying, because it's definitely something, even filming on brand, I felt it, you know, the pressure of I'm sitting up straight and I picked out my outfit 9 weeks ago for this episode. And, you know, it's kind of letting go of those perfectionism habits.
No, it makes sense. And I feel like we see feedback from all types of folks. Like, I remember when I had a conversation 5 months ago with Montel Williams, talk show host back in the day, things like that. And he gave me feedback. I'm the first time I'm going to announce this here on the podcast. He asked me, he's like, how long's the interview? Well, I said 45 minutes. Because I know how Montel is, because I've heard stories from other podcasts he's done where he basically scouts who he's talking to before they even get on main production. He said, it's too long, my friend, too long. And I go, okay, cool. I said, 30 minutes it is. I respect your time. But he gave me another 15 after, when the show was closed, we weren't recording. And that was just wholesome energy. It felt like I was in the green room with him when he was on his major talk show platform.
That's
So
incredible.
Yeah, and I took all that to heart, and some folks would have buckled under pressure and been like, yo, he just checked me. No, he gave me constructive criticism in a way, but I think it was to say, okay, I see who this guy is. Been doing this for 9 years. Let's really tap in. I want to really check and see, is there any chinks in the armor? How's he going to take the feedback? Because if I was a crumble, he could have easily said, okay, it's not happening. And then what did I now? I look like I got egg on my face. You know what I mean? So
100%.
It's like, when you get feedback from those, I should say, celebrity mindsets that are so at the highest pinnacle, you have to take that with heart and love and say, yo, I need to redefine, and just take those and just always have those constant reminders, like you mentioned, having a tattoo or something in the place setting that you can go back. Sticky note, that was a reminder. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Yeah. And it's, too, I think it's for them to see how that you're so receptive of the feedback, that's so important too. Because like you said, a lot of people could just crumble or shut down. So being able to show like, hey, I'm listening and I'm actively taking into account what you're saying too, I'm sure is like so important for them.
Of course, of course. And I think intentional listening, you know this when you said radio broadcasting and things like that. We got to be so dialed in. Some folks think when you show up on a podcast or you're doing anything on TV, it's just like, oh yeah, it's rehearsed. They think we're doing this like 80 different times. Fancy angles and cutting and editing and synchronization. No, this is real time conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
We don't got no cut.
Yeah, I'm like, this is it. I'm like, and I feel like some of the best moments come from that too, like that raw human connection, or like even like the little mess ups and the slip ups. Like that's what people want to see. People want to see the real.
Of course, for sure. So now with everything that you're doing, right? You're at the pinnacle. The brand deals are coming in. Are we thinking maybe more TV appearances, maybe doing a pivot, doing the whole podcast thing? Because that's a very targeted market right now. And I feel like there's some things you can help with the audiences and things like that.
Yeah, I have a couple exciting things in the works. I mean, I'm always hoping for the chance to get back in like reality TV land. Working for NBC was amazing, like had the best experience. So I'm always throwing my name into the hat when they're doing castings and working on new shows. But on kind of a more like individual level, I'm really, really hoping to get to the point where I could have my own travel show. It's something that I've always wanted, kind of like a Rick Steves-esque travel type show, but I want to gear it towards the younger generations. Like I want to be more relatable in the terms of like, I could show you the really nice restaurants, but also like this is the best bar and you could get a kebab next door until 3 a.m. Like this is, you know what I mean? Like I want kind of a mix of like the younger aspects of travel. Definitely hoping to see maybe in 2026 more on like a local scale to get it, you know, maybe on my local networks. I've been working with a couple of my old like broadcast connections. So that's something I'd love to see in 2026 is maybe being in the TV realm, but a little bit more on my own terms than in reality TV land.
I love that. I love that. Speak on misconceptions now of being a digital nomad, because I feel like
Yes.
everyone has their own biases and analogies that they want to come with, because some people go to TikTok and be like, you spoke about, you know, traveling in places where it's not the most safe. Speak on the misconceptions that come up and how we can identify those.
Yeah, there is definitely some negative misconnotations that come with being a digital nomad. I think a lot of them go back to this idea of people, going into a country where the cost of living is lower for them as an American because they're on American salary. And then in return, that drives up the prices of housing and food and experiences for the local individuals who work there, of course. And that's something that is so important to be mindful of. But I think there's this misconception that that's the only way to travel, is that no matter what, if you're a nomad, that's going to happen. I always try to, rent housing from local individuals. I try to stay away from Airbnb and hotels if I can. Like if I could, directly put my money in the pocket of someone who's in the local community that I'm renting from, that I'm eating from at their restaurant, that's always my number one priority. And I think sometimes people just they think of nomads as these, Americans on American salaries, again, basically just gallivanting around and driving up prices. And there definitely are people who aren't mindful of it, but that's one of the biggest misconceptions with me is I am so mindful of that. And it's, my number one priority when I'm traveling is to be respectful of the local community and culture and economy.
Absolutely. Because I feel like they think digital nomads are out here partying. They're turning up. Yes. They're in all the nightclubs. They're all over Florida, Miami, doing this, popping bottles. It ain't all that, though. You know what I mean? Because really, who's got time to be popping bottles like 3-4 days out the week, just partying, turning up? You know what I mean?
Right. And it's all about, too, it's really just living your normal life as you would at home, but doing it in a different country. I was going to say all of that to say I'm not popping bottles on a weekly basis.
No, I hear you. Because I feel like that just gets a little bit too expensive. When you speak to more women and safety and going to these countries, where should they be looking to travel per se? I know stay out of Airbnbs, potentially hotels, but where should they really be focusing their time and things like that?
I think the biggest thing, no matter, again, if you're staying in a hotel, Airbnb, local rental, the due diligence is so important. So when I check in, the first thing I do, no matter where I'm staying, is like full, like I will open every closet door, I'm looking under beds, like I'm checking everywhere. I just really want to like make sure I feel secure in the space. And then I also really encourage not even just women, just any solo travelers to invest in like personal safety devices or things that are even just going to make them more comfortable. So I have those extra door jamb locks that go in. At one point I used to have like window locks, but that I was like, okay, I think this is overkill a little bit. There's, you know, those door jammers. Just kind of, again, just checking out your space, making sure you feel safe, checking out the neighborhood that your apartment or your housing or your hotel is in, and just, you know, making sure that you feel comfortable. That's the biggest thing is take the extra, 10 minutes to check out your place.
No, absolutely. Because I feel like there's so much things that's going on in the world, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And have you ever thought about doing like with another friend or another digital nomad? Do you do that at all, or is it more just you just rather be like solo by myself, do what I need to go do?
Yeah, I do have a lot of digital nomad friends, which is such a nice part about the community is like sharing your stories online. You meet other people who are full-time travelers doing what you're doing. So it's always fun to link up and maybe do a week or two with someone else. I do just really prefer solo travel. It's always been kind of my passion is I do truly enjoy traveling by myself. But especially if you're someone out there listening who wants to try out being a nomad or this full-time travel, doing it with a buddy to start especially is such a great way to get into it and to make yourself kind of ease into it and be more comfortable. And there is a really big, nice, accepting digital nomad community out there online. So lots of people you could always reach out to.
I love that you say that because now I want to have just a teeny bit of fun. Essentials. You know, we got to pack our clothes and our toothbrush and our, self-care kits, face wash, all of that stuff. Give me beyond that. What are the 3 essentials you need? Especially when you're traveling and all this. Like we speak about like the security tags and the locks and all that. But what would you say is that you need to be a digital nomad out there?
Okay, one of my biggest ones is air tags. I have air tags in everything. They're, I don't know what's going on, but sometimes I think the European airlines are losing luggage for fun. I think it's for sport. I have lost a lot of bags. So I'm like, if I can have an air tag in every single bag, I will. I always tell people that. Just peace of mind. Nothing is worse than losing your luggage when you're living out of your luggage because there goes all of your clothes. I also really recommend stocking up on like your medicines or supplements or vitamins that you take. Like could be really frustrating visiting a pharmacy abroad and there's a language barrier, they don't carry the brands. Even something as simple as like Dayquil and NyQuil for when you get a cold, having to find the equivalent version of that in a foreign country could be stressful when you are already not feeling good. So I would come stocked up, prepared with, all your vitamins, all your medicine, everything that you need, even stuff that you don't think you'll need. And I tell people to definitely bring extra converters. Like nothing is more frustrating too than like getting to a hotel after a long travel day, your phone's on 2% and then your converter doesn't work or it doesn't work with that certain outlet. And so always being prepared that way. I'm like that. Right. I have like 10 in my bag.
No, I hear you because it's like even when I used to work at Apple, we used to sell the converters and things like that. And now that you have newer iPhones are out, you got to figure out all these different things. So it's like, that's another travel bag I got to put in or wrap some stuff in the clothes. See, we're giving tips now. We're giving practical action tips. Wrap those plugs in your clothes. Figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because it can be so overwhelming. And then you get to a different country with the currencies a little bit different. Then you're out here and you're like, got to do your math and realize, do I am under the right conversion? This is going to cost more. Charge it down here is going to cost me $60 in total. If you get third party, you can go on Amazon, but then it breaks, it doesn't work, things like that, right?
Exactly. I'm like always over prepare. I used to try to be minimalistic, but especially when you're a nomad and you're living out a suitcase, I'm like, I'd rather be a little over prepared and have to carry like 5 extra pounds in my bags than again get to a country and be like, I do not have what I need.
No, absolutely. Speak to when you're traveling to these countries. Is there some form of memorabilia you take from those countries? Or like maybe fashion outfit? I see the jacket that you got on. And I know that jacket over there, I know a little bit about fashion. I still work at retail, I get what's going on. But is there any memorabilia or fashion pieces that you take from the country
It's so funny you say that because literally the only souvenirs I buy now are clothing. When you travel full time, you're not like doing magnets. You're not doing like, the typical thing because when I'm traveling to so many places and again, I have such limited room in my suitcase, I'm like, I don't need the magnets. I don't need the things that are going home in the trinkets. I love getting a good piece of clothing. Like I will seek out like a thrift store, a market. Like if I could get something that feels like so unique, so like authentic, like even if it's like from a local designer or something like that, that's my number one thing. I'm like, I will gladly carry that home in my suitcase if I could get a special piece of fashion from one of these countries.
So when you go to a higher end like places in the countries, speak to like that jacket there. You don't have to go in the price. What's the brand? What's the brand of the jacket? I feel like that's some like.
Oh no! This is Revolve. This is like $100 Revolve. We love a deal.
It don't sound like it's $100. It don't look like $100.
I'm telling you, I'm like Revolve super fan over here. I'm like we're balling on a budget,
I like that. I like that. Is there any place like bucket list? What's like that number one place you want to visit right now?
So right now, and I'm hoping to get there this year, Petra, which is in Jordan, is like my number one on my bucket list right now. A big goal of mine is to do all 7 world wonders, and I'm at 6 out of 7, so this is my last one. It's a little difficult to get to, so you have to fly into Jordan. You need to hire a guide to take you way out, into the desert to Petra. It's miles of walking. It's definitely an adventurous trip, but that's such a bucket list one for me. There's so much history there, similar to Egypt in terms of the architecture, and hoping I could cross that off this spring. We're seeing them.
I love that.
In the works.
I love that. Do you ever pick up the languages to like maybe continuous education in the mindset to really be able to learn other languages when you go to other places, so you can have like fluent conversation and dialogue?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked me this, because this is like the number one comment on my TikTok, and probably the number one like hate comment I get is people being like, you don't speak the language everywhere you go. And I definitely want to speak to that. I studied French from the time I was 10 years old. So I would say I'm proficient in French. Definitely wouldn't say I'm fluent, but I have a background in French, which is why when I first started nomading, I spent a lot of time in France, as it was a country I knew the language. Now I spend a majority of my time traveling, about half the year in Florence, Italy, and I take Italian lessons. It's very difficult for me to switch from French to Italian, but I definitely am getting there. That's something I will gladly invest my money in, is, taking lessons and learning the local language. But when you also travel as much as I do to so many places, it is very, very, very hard. So I always try to at least learn the basics to be able to be respectful. Hello, how are you, goodbye, please, thank you, all of those things. But there's definitely like a misconception online that I think people sometimes think nomads just don't care, or there's no effort. And I'm like, I'm taking the lessons. Like, you just don't see me post about it behind the scenes. I'm like, I'm hiring the private Italian coach. I'm working on it. But it's hard. It's hard to learn a language as an adult, especially.
No, and that's the thing. Like, at one point in time, English was the hardest language to learn. But now, the way that our iPhones or our Android phones are set up, you can actually put the translator right there on your phone and have the conversation, or you get Duolingo. And there's so many folks that there's even like learning apps now you can self-study yourself. So by the time you go to a place that could be Middle Eastern speaking country, or French speaking, or Spanish speaking, you're already learning the language. You can get hip to a lot of things, Because growing up, one of my best friends, he was Hungarian. So when he would say Anya and Papa, eventually I was like, that's mom and dad, right?
Yeah.
I understand what that meant. So it's like, and then you start picking up certain things when they're talking, and you can piece it together, but then you'll always ask for, is that what you guys are speaking about or something? And they're like, yeah. Right. But you got to just be able to intentional listening, Not everyone has it. But
I will say, it doesn't come naturally to everyone. I think we have so many tools available now. So I'm like, if you're traveling to a country, like minimum, you got to be able to say like, hello, goodbye, please, thank you. You know what I mean? I'm like, you have the tools. There are so many free resources on your phone. There's literally translation apps. So I tell people that. I'm like, it's just like basic manners. Like, I was like, if you're traveling somewhere, you should at least come prepared with the basics,
And I think we talk about like comments that we get, if it's on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube. Do comments come in when it's like, when's that time where Lauren's gonna settle down and maybe have a family, or like nestle in and just kind of pack all this up and venture something else? What does that look like now for you in that ecosystem?
I get them. You know what? Funny enough, I get them online, but I probably get them in person more from people around me and friends and family who are like, when is this thing over? You know, like they feel like there's an end date or this is a phase. I think when you're doing content creation as your job, it's a difficult concept for people around you to understand, especially like my parents who are a little bit older, where they think there's an end date to this. You know, it's like it's a job contract and it will be over. And I'm like, you know, when you turn your life into the job, you know, and sharing your life, there's no, oh, I'm, you know, taking PTO or, you know, it's like, it's your life. It's what you're sharing nonstop. So I definitely get comments from, you know, my family around me who are like, okay, you've been traveling for, you know, 2-3 years now. What's next? Like, you're going to, you know, get an apartment, settle down. And it's hard to explain to them that I'm like, I think this is just kind of my life for the time being. You know, there's no taking a break from it. It's, you know, what I've built. It's what I love. It's what I'm passionate about. There's no like next right now. It's this.
I love that. I love that. And I feel like I can echo to that because wherever your parents are in age, you know, you have parents that where we sit could be 50s, mid 50s, 60s, even sometimes in the 70s. And I said it this past weekend to one of my cousins. I said, look, no matter what the old school is saying, it holds value, but they have to also understand is we're living in a different society and age right now.
Yes.
So there are a lot of their old school principles of like, go to school, you know, get that degree, do this, get the job, get the house, get the blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff may not result for every single one of us because the world has changed. And I think everyone that I speak to now over the weekend is like, some folks want to go entrepreneur or some folks just want to work for themselves. You know what I mean? That could even be just having a job in a trade where you're doing flooring or you're doing plumbing or you're doing electrical. You know what I mean? Sometimes It's not working the 9 to 5 and working for the man or the woman, but it's like, I want to build my own empire here. So I don't want to answer to nobody because why do you want to answer to somebody else when you could build your own lifestyle now? And that's the way the world's going right now. You know? Exactly.
It's more obtainable, I think, now than ever too. So I definitely think that's why people like in the older generations, when they hear, what do you mean you make videos on the internet? You know what I mean? It's so obtainable and we have the tools and it's the way that society is going is that you are able to work for yourself now more than ever. But for some people, it's definitely a hard concept to grasp. You know, it is different. It's new.
And it's not to even disrespect our parents or our guardians and things like that. But I had a content creator, Twitch streamer, and he said, mom and dad looked at him and was like, yo, you're playing video games? Like, what are you doing? He showed him the first YouTube check that he got. First check was like $4,000. They're like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, exactly. It can be done. You know what I mean? But that's the work you have to put in. So sometimes going to work for those 8 hours and you get that bi-weekly every 2 weeks or you get paid every week, it's one thing. But then if you realize you can sit behind a camera or on your couch or your gaming chair or whatever you're doing and you can double that income, triple that income, and I understand it's not always going to be consistent, it's going to change.
Yeah.
Well, you're in the right place.
Especially if you love it too. I mean, like Twitch streaming, like you were literally getting paid to do something that you're interested in and you love. And I mean, you know, for me, I took travel and I turned something I love into, you know, being able to monetize it. So if you're able to do that and there's a way that you can monetize a passion of yours, I'm like, just go for it. You know what I mean? Like, how rewarding would it be to be able to build for a few years and then truly be like making an income doing what you love to do? Like that's so, you know, that's just what everyone dreams of, I feel.
No, I love that. Before we get out of here, I always like to give back to the guests. They're going to plug their information, things like that.
Yes.
Speak to, from your line of work, in your position, anyone that's listening to any man, any woman, child, right? How to become 1% better. And what does that look like from your point of view?
I would say, to me, telling someone how to become 1% better is definitely being able to block out other people's opinions. I think when you're creating content, you create for the audience, and there's, you know, it could definitely impact your day-to-day, how you carry yourself, just how you live your life when you are creating and living your life for an audience. And yes, it's important to know, you know, what's providing value to your audience, what they like, but you also need to remember that you're a real person. You know what I mean? And being able to block out opinions and still live your life on your own terms, and at the end of the day, be happy with yourself and who you are when you're going to bed is so important. So just being able to, I would say, block out other people's opinions and still live your life for yourself. If you're pursuing content creation, you're already going to be 1% better there.
Woo! love that. Just got to give a round of applause. Lauren, where can everyone check you out? Instagram, TikTok, and whatever else you want to plug on the channel.
It's Lauren.Karwoski on Instagram. I am Sweet Life of Lauren on TikTok, sweet like the hotel suite. And I actually have a Sweet Life of Lauren scholarship that's going to be launching over the next few weeks. So stay tuned for some updates about that on social media. Really excited to start sharing some stuff about that soon.
Can you give us a little salt, a little sugar about what that is a little bit? Just a teeny bit? Scholar,
Yes,
I'm hearing that. Honor and a scholar. I like that.
I'm going to be partnering with Semester at Sea, which was the study abroad organization that I did when I was in college that definitely inspired me to start traveling. I'm going to be partnering with them, and we're being able to hopefully, kind of take from the Sweet Life of Lauren brand that I've built and give back to help aid a female scholar every year in going to do that program. So something that's going to be rolling out over the next few weeks, still in the works behind the scenes, but again, on my social, you'll see some announcements and kind of information when that application opens soon. So really excited about that.
And then obviously when this goes live, there's going to be her show notes. We're going to put her links and things like that. And by all means, I'm always like this: is content creation, podcasting, anything you need me to plug, by all means, send it over to me. I'll throw it up. You know what I mean? There's a group of guys before we get out last night where it's like, we said they all the same thing. As long as you come from a genuine perspective of life, you're wholesome, you're doing things from, I understand there's that monetary game, but I've said is, what I see with a lot of brands right now, it's always been about the monetary and they lost the community, but they're still hanging 100%. On to the fruits of the monetary because now they can't get the community. So all they got to do is, well, I'm just going to make money, right? And I think once you pivot that and you be about community and you start being selfless instead of selfish, that's when you start seeing that organic ability happen. Yeah, we may have different points of view in the world. Sometimes you just ask that question. What do you mean by that view or that point that you've created or you've seen something online or that sports team or that music artist? It happens. We all have differences. But I think what we can do is lower that ego, but then also be able to help support one another to get to the next level. Because
absolutely,
there's food on the table for everyone. It's just what's your plate going to look like. Not everyone's going to be that, $50 to $100 million a year. Some are just going to be okay being 1 million, 500K. But that changes your life because that's money that you may have not had access to. That makes sense.
Absolutely. You know what I mean? I love that, and I love that attitude. I am so aligned with everything you said. So just know it goes on my side too. I'm always happy to share, promote. I mean, like you said, there's room for everyone, and there's wealth and good things for all of us to share. So
absolutely. I appreciate you. Mitchell Port Unleashed podcast coming on, all this good stuff. Anytime you're in the Toronto area, by all means, come to the studio, pull up. Yes. I understand it's cold over here right now, but pull up. We got you.
I would love that. I was going to say maybe Canada will be a stop on my travels coming up. So absolutely.
Why not? Come in the summer though. I'm going to tell you this. Come in the summer. Cause I don't know if you can handle that cold outside.
I cannot. I'll tell you that. Tell you that right now. I cannot. No. Exactly. I'll see you in the warmer months. Awesome.
All right, Lord. I appreciate you. Okay.
Thank you so much.